Let's go right to the phone calls. Again, the number to dial, 888-ASK-HANK. First up, Dave, listening in Montana, Sirius XM 131. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Hank. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
First of all, I wanted to thank you very much for defending the faith and encouraging others to do so. So I want to just appreciate that. So my question has to do with the stratification of the severity of sin that we tend to do. Recently, I had a pastor make a comment about the fact that since murder is listed in the Ten Commandments above covetousness, that it's a more severe sin and everything. And I understand that the earthly consequences of sin vary greatly from murder to very things that don't have very many earthly consequences, but it seems to me like the heavenly consequence of sin is the same, regardless of the sin. The price that was paid to redeem it was Jesus' blood, whether it was covetousness or murder or whatever. And I wondered what your thoughts are on that, and if you could just comment about that.
Sure. I think a lot of what you said is fantastic. The distinction that you make correctly between sin and consequences of sin, I think that's apropos. But let me just remind you of what Jesus said when he said to the Pharisees that they tithe their mint and their cumin, but they neglect the weightier matters of the law: justice, righteousness, and equity. So I think we can legitimately make distinctions between virtues and sins. I think you pointed this out well. I mean, if I think a murderous thought, it is not exactly the same as committing murder. The sins of Sodom and Gomorrah were indeed repugnant in the eyes of the Lord. But if the deeds that Jesus did in Capernaum had been done in Sodom and Gomorrah, they would have not been held to the same standard. So the idea here is, I think, that not only sin is different, and we can make a difference between sin, but the consequences, not only here, but for all eternity, are different. And the reason I would stress that is to say that, as I pointed out in a book called Afterlife, What You Need to Know About Heaven, the Hereafter, and Near-Death Experiences, I point out that there are degrees of reward in heaven and degrees of punishment in hell. So I think we can safely say that someone like a Hitler or a Stalin or a Pol Pot, or you name the person, the villain, that their consequences in eternity will be far greater than that of a garden variety pagan.
Okay, and then what would you say to someone that has done something like committed murder and then has repented of that and accepted Jesus Christ? And as far as their eternal outlook, what would you say to that person?
Well, I would say exactly what Paul says. In 1 Corinthians, what he points out is that there's only one foundation, and that foundation is Jesus Christ. But we can build on that foundation. We can build on that foundation using wood, hay, or stubble, or we can build on that foundation using gold or silver or costly stones. And the day of the Lord will bring to light what kind of material we were using. So again, Jesus says no other foundation can be laid other than Jesus Christ, but we can build on that foundation. And if what we build survives, we will receive reward. If it is burned up, we will suffer loss. We ourselves will be saved, but only as one escaping through flames. And so, as I pointed out in my book, Resurrection, this illustrates the sober reality that some Christians will be resurrected with precious little to show for the time that they spent on earth. They're going to be saved, but only as one escaping through the flames. And that for me conjures up an image of a person escaping a burning building with little more than charred clothes upon their back. So again, the operative issue here is the issue of reward or loss, and that's precisely the language that is used by Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 3.
Okay. So despite what a person's done, it's important to build on Jesus Christ and to finish strong, really.
Absolutely, and that's why Jesus says, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust corrupt, where thieves break in and steal, but rather lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not corrupt, where thieves do not break in and steal, for where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Or, behold, I come quickly, my reward is with me, and I'll give to everyone according to what he has done. So I think this whole idea that is so often communicated that all you do is you pray a prayer and now you have the insurance policy and everybody has exact same outcome is simply misguided from a biblical standpoint. We must continue on in the work of the church with those that are the called in doing works of righteousness, and we will give an account for what we have done in the flesh.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You got it, Dave. Thanks for your call.